the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen Sewer Commission meeting October 11, 2011. I am requesting that all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off or in a mute position as not to disturb the meeting. Any member of the public also has a right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of a public meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify the chair and must comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. There will be someone recording this evening and taking some pictures, but there will be no flash. I'd like to call the meeting to order. A roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, all 5 selectmen are present, as is the town administrator, Mr. Andrews.
Announcements, please.
On Thursday, October the 13th, 2011, which is Thursday night, there will be a preview to town meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium. This is being presented by the Onset Protective League and the town moderator, Claire Smith, and refreshments will be served. This is October 13th, Thursday night, 6:30. Town meeting dates are October 24th on Monday night, starting at 6 p.m. Oh, 7 p.m. 6 p.m. is for the selectmen's meeting at the Wareham High School in the auditorium. Remember that when you come in, you have to check in just like you do when you go to vote, so give yourself ample time. If town meeting doesn't finish on the Monday night, follow-up will be Tuesday night at 7 p.m., and if it doesn't finish then, it will be on Halloween night at 7 p.m. The Board of Selectmen will meet each one of those nights at 6 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. On Friday, November 11th, we'll be hosting the Wareham Veterans Day Parade. We're really trying to push for a lot of participation. Mr. White will come up next week. He's very camera shy. Works for the TV company in town, but he's camera shy. But he will come up next week and give us a update as to what groups have signed up to participate in the parade. Again, that's going to be on Friday, November the 11th. We will assemble at 10, and the parade kicks off at 10:30. There'll also be a potluck luncheon in the multi-service center after the conclusion of the ceremony. So it'd be really nice to show our support to our veterans who have done so much for our country. And again, Mr. White will give us an update next week on what groups have signed up to participate. On October the 13th, which is Thursday, from 9:30 to 2 p.m., our Wareham Garden Club will be discussing putting your garden to bed for the winter, as well as gourds. Should be an interesting conversation. Again, that's going to be at the I don't have a green thumb, so I have no idea what a gourd is, but it should be interesting. Again, that's going to be at the Thatcher Fellowship Hall from 9:30 until 2 p.m. The Garden Club is always looking for new members, so you can contact Bunny Hayes, Debbie Bush, or anybody in the Selectman's office, and we'll be able to give you information on how to join the Garden Club. And again, that's Thursday at 9:30. On Friday night, again, at the Marion Music Hall, there'll be a wine tasting, and this is to support Gleason Family YMCA. As you know, Gleason, they do their best, and it is their mission not to turn anybody away from any of their programs for financial reasons. So on Friday night, there is a wine tasting at the Marion Music Hall from 6 to 9 p.m. On Sunday, October 16th, from 11:30 to 3 p.m. at the Main Street Fire Station, the Wareham Fire Department will be holding its fire safety open house. Families are invited to learn about fire prevention, fire safety activities, as October is National Fire Safety Month. The event is free. Papa Gino's will be serving pizza. If you need more information, you can call Captain Dykus at the fire department. I think that's all I have. Kara? Mike? Mr. Chairman? That's it for the announcements.
Okay, citizen participation. We have one in the back.
Good evening, Sandy Slavin. I was wondering, what was the status of the road commissioners commission? Or is it been formed yet?
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, through you, we have 4 or 5 I think it's up next week at our third Tuesday meeting.
Since it hasn't been formed yet, I believe we have a serious problem on the Narrows Bridge going out of the town on Route 6. There's always a green arrow to the right. I'm finding more and more cars stopping 2 abreast to go straight on Route 6 because there is absolutely nothing there that tells them the right-hand turn must turn right. Is it possible that we can get something painted on that bridge again that had an arrow going straight on the left lane and an arrow going right on the right lane? It's been a while since there's been no other signage. It's not uncommon for 2 cars to be stopped, preventing people from going right, and then they get on their horn and whatever. It's now a drag strip off of that light to be which one of the 2 cars would go forward. Just if you could ask help.
I appreciate your input on that. Anything to do with the roads, as of right now and before, goes to the maintenance department, Mark Gifford, him and the chief of police, because they're in charge of mostly everything that pertains to speeding, bumps, or whatever complaints we have goes to them first. So I'm just saying this for anybody else. If they have any complaints, take the proper channels and go to Mark Gifford first. Even when we form the commission, it'll be going to them because Mark Gifford and the chief of police will be on that committee. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Anders, could you ask Mr. Gifford if he could follow up on that for me, please?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Ms. Slavin, I'm happy to do that. I think the chairman's point, be the department heads and do
Okay.
their work. I'm happy to intercede if you don't get the answers to the questions that you're looking for. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Welcome.
Number 2, I was here last week asking if we can get an estimate of moving 3 pump stations. I have 2 properties that I've inherited of the 257 that were sewered under contract number 2, and I'm looking for the total cost for the projects to move 3 pump stations. Most of them were removed because a person didn't like them in their yard, and I just want to know what is it going to cost me to satisfy those 3 people and move those stations. I was just looking for a cost estimate for the 3 stations to be moved.
I think CDM has been notified, and they are working on it.
They'll have all cost?
Well, they're working on it. I don't know what cost they're going to have, but they are going to have a breakdown.
Okay. And I noticed tonight on your agenda, you're talking about policy number 88-2, access to town council. I brought it up last week. I understand that there has been 2 more policy updates since that 88-2 policy. And I was just wondering, by open meeting law, can you only talk about 88-2 since that's what's in the agenda? Or can you talk about 05-2, which is the most current one?
Okay, Mr. Andrews, you want to answer that?
I believe the question came up relative to access to town council. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. I believe the question came up with regards to access to town council, and clearly in the agenda it says access to town council. So I believe we can talk about policies and issues relating to town council and access. And the first citation of it would be that this policy goes back to 1988.
88.
1988.
So even though it says 88-2, you can talk about any policies regarding to town council.
Well, it says, excuse me, for the record, it says dash access to town council.
Mhm.
So I think under access to town council, if it's the board's purview to discuss access to town council, it may
All right.
discuss it.
Last week, the board said we were to follow 88-2. When I asked, okay, and I'm just wondering whether or not you now want us to follow 5-2.
The most current,
The
excuse me.
most
Mr.
current one?
Chairman. Yes.
Okay, it's just too bad the most current one wasn't distributed to us, or to you. Okay, thank you.
Since there aren't any more citizen participation, next one is the Wareham Free Library. Letter from Inspector General. We had a letter that come to us last week. We are going to read it. We're not going to read it in the entirety, but we will read the beginning and the findings at the end. And the clerk, Mr. Holmes, will read it. And the reason why we're doing this is because it implicated prior board members plus committees and boards. So we want to make sure if they've been exonerated, that it's out there in the public. Mr. Clerk?
And there'll be no discussion.
And there'll be no discussion. This is not a public meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, the letter is addressed to Mr. Walter Cruz, Chairman, Wareham Board of Selectmen. Dear Mr. Cruz, the Office of the Inspector General initiated an investigation in December 2009 pertaining to the Wareham Free Library after receiving information concerning an illegal money laundering, embezzlement, and income tax fraud scheme. Discussion of the alleged scheme first surfaced in a newspaper story published in the Wareham Observer newspaper on November 5, 2009. The story was written by the publisher of the Wareham newspaper. The Observer story specifically alleged that from 1995 to 2005, more than $3 million was laundered from the Wareham Library under the direction of its former, now deceased director. According to the story, at least 123 people were reportedly involved in a highly sophisticated operation which large portions of private library donations were returned immediately to the donors in cash, who in turn declared 100% of these donations on their tax returns. The story alleged that the donor kickbacks ranged from 50 to 75% of each donation, depending upon the size of the donation. The story alleged that many donors preferred making frequent smaller donations so not to alert the attention of the Internal Revenue Service. The Observer story alleged that the money remaining from the library donation after the kickbacks was evenly split between the library director, the Wareham Free Library Board of Trustees, and the Friends of the Wareham Free Library. According to the story, as much as $1.5 million was embezzled from the library in order to replenish the kickbacks to the donors. The story indicated that the embezzled money came from used book sales in coin-operated copy machines located in the library that were used by library patrons. The story alleged that many of the books sold at the book sales were actually new books taken from the library shelves that had been purchased with public money. The story further alleged 3 people who were involved as donors in this alleged kickback scheme. Moreover, he stated that a former Wareham Free Library trustee approached him with a ledger that documented every single donation made to the library between 1995 and 2005, including the names of the 123 people involved in the scheme. The publishers suggested in the story that there is a list containing the names of the 123 donors, and that the list had been given to an unnamed third party in Florida who would release it in the event that something unfortunate happened to him. Investigative summary and conclusion. The investigation was initiated by the Office of the Inspector General after allegations were made in the Wareham Observer newspaper that 123 donors of the Wareham Free Library, the former director, the members of the Library Trustees Corporation, and the Friends of the Wareham Free Library were engaged in a donor kickback and embezzlement conspiracy between 1995 and 2005. The Observer alleged that these 123 persons made frequent small donations to the library and received substantial portions of their donations back in cash payments. The Observer further alleged that these donors cheated on their income taxes by reporting the full amount of their donations as charitable gifts. Moreover, it was alleged that some of the conspirators laundered in excess of $3 million through the library and pocketed a substantial portion of the money. According to the story, $1.5 million was embezzled from the library in order to replenish the donor kickbacks, and that the embezzled money came from used book sales and coin-operated copy machines located in the library. During the investigation, the Office of the Inspector General conducted a substantial number of interviews with persons in a position to have knowledge of or participation in the alleged conspiracy. Persons interviewed included current and former library officials, numerous past and present members and officers of the Wareham Free Library Trustees Corporation and the Friends of the Wareham Library Corporation, Wareham town officials, and donors to the Wareham Free Library. The OIG investigators reviewed hundreds of pages of documents containing bank account, investment account, financial donation, and other miscellaneous records pertaining to the Trustees Corporation, the Friends, and the Wareham Free Library. The OIG investigation did not reveal any evidence to substantiate or corroborate the allegations contained in the Observer story. The investigation revealed the primary sources for the monetary funds in the possession and control of the Trustees Corporation and the Friends. It also revealed, in general, how these entities utilized these funds and what they did with them. There's a footnote here at this point, and it says that the OIG did not perform a forensic audit of the financial records of the Trustees Corporation and the Friends. Nonetheless, the OIG review provided a significant picture of the funds available to these groups and how they were utilized. The report goes on. The investigation also disclosed the approximate amount of money these entities had available to them in the critical time frame between 1995 and 2005 when the alleged conspiracy was going on. The review of these financial records during the critical time frame shows that the persons involved in the alleged scheme never had access to funds amounting to more than $3 million or funds anywhere close to that amount. For example, in 2004, the records disclosed that the Trustees Corporation and their Friends had approximately $473,250 in financial assets under their control. The OIG review did not disclose any suspicious withdrawals of these financial assets. The investigation disclosed no evidence that cash was being withdrawn from any accounts controlled by the Trustees Corporation and the Friends to be used as kickback to donors. Moreover, the investigation did not show any evidence of embezzlement of funds, cash kickbacks to donors, multiple repeat donation of money by 123 individuals, or anything remotely suggesting sustained organized criminality involved in the multiple conspirators. In fact, 8 of the 11 donors alleged by the publisher to be involved in the kickback scheme were not found in the donor list reviewed by the OIG. Moreover, the 3 persons whose names were provided to us by the publisher that did make donations were not serial donors who gave repeatedly over the years from 1995 to 2005. In fact, one of these donors gave a total of $250 in 2005 and 2006. A second donor made a one-time gift of $70 in 2005 and a third made a one-time gift of $5,000 to the Smitty Memorial Library in 2006. As mentioned above, the Observer story alleges that the primary sources for the $1.5 million in embezzled funds were the book sales carried out by the Friends and the removal of money from the coin-operated copy machines at the library. The OIG investigation has demonstrated that the money obtained from the coin-operated copy machines never went to library personnel. The money collected from the 2 coin-operated machines located in the library for an 8-month period in 2010 through 2011 was $917. The amount of money obtained from the book sales by the Friends was de minimis and did not come anywhere close to the amount of the alleged embezzled money mentioned in the Observer story. Persons involved with the Friends book sale estimated that during the time period when there was one annual sale, the proceeds ranged anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 per year. During the time frame of 1995 to 2005, anecdotal reports indicate that one annual book sale was held by the Friends during the majority of that period. When the book sales were held 10 times per year, annual total revenue varied from approximately $11,000 to $21,000 per year. Suffices to say that the amount of revenue generated by these sales could never have supported the kind of widespread organized criminal scheme detailed in the Observer story. In summary, this investigation disclosed no evidence that a donor kickback and embezzlement conspiracy ever took place. Absent the production of compelling new evidence to the contrary, this investigation is closed. Sincerely, Gregory W. Sullivan, Inspector General. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk, Mr. Holmes. Discussion of Westfield?
Mr. Chairman, in your packet, in front of you this evening is an update. I asked Susan Green to provide an update. You have the hybrid of a letter that we had drafted to the 5 bidders previously that we are adapting to send out to over 100 other companies that could be interested as prospective applicants and participants in this process. And that's the update that I have tonight on the Westfield project, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Consent agenda, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a
Yes,
question?
Mr. Winslow?
Would it be possible for us to post this, the Inspector General's report on the town website so people have easy access to read the entire, it is a 21-page report that is
Yeah.
very detailed.
The report is public knowledge. If they want to get a copy, they can go to Town Hall and get a copy. So it's out there now. If we have it posted on the website, it'll be up to Mr. Andrews to do that. But right now, if they want a copy, it's Freedom of Information Act. They can apply for it and they can get it.
Right, I understand that. So could we ask Mr. Andrews to
And
get
that's
it?
what I just said.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrews will take care of it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I believe
Smith.
that there are other reports regarding the Inspector General that relate to the town that have never been addressed at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. So if we're going to post one Inspector General's report, I think that it's appropriate that we post them all on the town's website.
Well, I'm going to leave that call up to Mr. Andrews right now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have an update this week on the Contract 2 change.
Yes, we do.
I'm Mike Judici from CDM.
Go Speak a little closer.
Sure. Just in terms of an update, as you know, Mr. Cruz, the main issue that we discussed last week that is still outstanding to complete the pumping station installation are the installation of the 2 electric meters, one at the Apple Street pumping station and the other at the Cromeset pumping station. Those still have not occurred. The CDM, the town, and the contractor put in multiple calls to NSTAR, and they just have not appeared yet. The Apple Street station was scheduled for last Thursday for that installation, and as you know, that did not occur. So just wanted to make the board aware of that issue at this point.
Right, thank you very much, because I think your project superintendent had called yesterday. I was surprised that they were on the job, but he did call and inform us that it wasn't taken care of, and I told him early this morning we were going to jump right on it, and I think we have a report saying that they will install them tomorrow, so we'll
Great.
see what goes on then, and we can go from there.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just want to once again acknowledge not only your steadfast ability to monitor this process, but to get to that trailer every week, and I know Selectwoman Begley and others have gone there as well. We did get confirmation back from Karen Ray that the installation should happen tomorrow, Mr. Judici.
Great.
Okay, Mr.
Thank you,
Holmes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cruz, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Judici, how are you?
Good evening.
We had a question by a citizen, and there were 3 stations that were relocated that added to the cost of the project, correct?
Correct.
So I see here on our change order,
Just select another control here, Mr. Chairman, because I don't get a cause of a ruckus. Thank you.
on page 3, do you have a copy of it with you, Mr. Judici?
Of the change order itself?
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Yes.
On page 3, at the top, it says there were additional electrical subcontractor costs for all 3 stations due to the relocations. So the total cost for the relocation of all 3 stations as described above. So would that answer the question that the citizen had presented to this board? That's the total cost of the relocation of the 3 pump stations?
That is the total of the construction cost of the relocation of the 3 stations.
So the additional
Correct.
cost, this is additional cost on the project. This would be the total. So that
Okay.
would answer the question that the citizen had. So that would be it's $119,232.51.
That is the total for the work at the station sites themselves. In addition to that, there were other costs at 2 of the stations, at Cromeset and at the Mattapoisett station. In the actual change order paperwork itself,
Yes.
there's an additional...
I see. That's at the bottom of page 3. And,
No,
no.
Actually, no, I think you're
No.
looking at the letter dated May 18th. Is that the one you're looking at?
No, this one's dated September 22nd.
Okay. If I may, can I have a breakdown that might help?
Thank you.
Do you still need it?
I might.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Mike.
So in response to the question that came up last week, I sort of reworked the table that I had previously provided to you at a previous meeting. So to your point, Mrs. Begley, as you see on the construction portion of the change, at the first line, sewer pipeline changes, there's a $15,000 and change cost for each of the Cromeset and Mattapoisett Road stations, so there's an additional $30,000 on top of that $119 for a total of $149,000 construction cost change. In addition to that, at the top of the page, there were additional costs for redesigning and preparing new easement plans for 2 of the stations. And as we've discussed previously, the additional costs for resident engineering services. And in that case, and that's just based on the time needed to be out there, as you know, that really isn't allocated for each of the stations. So in terms of simplicity, I just divided that equally amongst the 3 stations just for talking purposes.
So the total cost to relocate the 3 pumping stations is $314,441.47.
Correct. Now, there may have been additional costs on the town side. These are the costs that we have processed and associated with this change.
Certainly.
Whether there are other outside legal costs that are outside our contract, I'm not aware of those.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, on the contract, did you go over that yet or no?
Mr. Chairman, I saw some traffic on the $5,000 that was in question last week. Is that still, well, the $5,900 still up in the air, right?
Yes, we had talked to CDM last week, and they wanted to process it with the same amount, and if the board decided to deduct the right, as of right now, the $5,900, then we'll deduct it. But if it's due, then we're either going to pay them now or pay them later. It's a matter of if we can build a town for that, because it was a water pipe, and we'll have to run down the information and make sure we got all the information from both parties. Make sure it was done properly. Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, I did read the emails that went back and forth, and Mr. Giudice, the Wareham Water District claims that they have spent in excess of $100,000 repairing water pipes that were broken as a result of the sewer work. So how is it that towns normally handle something like this? I mean, if we were in an MWRA district and a sewer contractor, so I guess it seems to me that the water district is blaming it on the construction work that's going on, and from my perspective, anything that has to do with repairing a water main falls under the water district because we're separate. And I guess I'm not understanding who is ultimately responsible, because if the contractor is just busting up water pipes all over the place, then, quite frankly, that's the contractor's problem, not ours. And if we have paid over $100,000 out of water district funds, which is all of our funds because we all have to pay for it, then I have an issue with that too. And now I'm thinking there may be more to this than we've been led to believe.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I haven't been privy to the specific emails, but in general, it's a good question. Typically, most communities, with the exception of, as you said, MWA-type communities, the water and sewer systems are both part of the same municipality. They aren't separate entities. In terms of work that has been done during this contract and others, certainly the water department has fixed a number of water mains. So has the contractor. If the contractor hits a water main, he's responsible for repairing that at his cost, and that is what has happened. In this particular case, this was a water main that was outside the limits of his work. As he was moving the trench box, which supports the trench to install the sewer along, the soil that had previously been supporting this water main gave way, and that's what led to the sewer break, water main break. As I said, during the course of his operations, the contractor fixes water mains on a regular basis. It's usually not a major issue. It's an hour here and there, and he just takes care of it and does it. In some cases, the fire district has participated in that as well. In this case, because it was such a long shutdown, it was a 6-hour process by the time they could make the repairs and get back to installing sewers. Essentially, almost a whole day. It was 9 to 3:30, I believe, were the hours. So it was only because it was such an extensive or extended period of time that it took him to repair this that he asked to be compensated in the first place. Again, this isn't a case of him acting negligently and hitting a water main that was clear where it was and he needed to protect it. This is something that happened outside the limits of his work, and it was just a case where the water main gave way once they removed the soil behind that was supporting it.
So in your professional opinion, was the water main damaged because of the excavation that was going on in the area?
Clearly, and I'm assuming it's the stance that the water department and a reasonable person could make. If the sewer contract were not going on, the water main wouldn't have broken. And that maybe it would break in a day or a week or 10 years from now, but clearly if that work had not taken place at that period of time, that water main would not have broken. That being said, it wasn't due to any negligence by the contractor. It was just part of his normal operation.
Right, but I think we, as a board, the issue last week was who is responsible for paying that portion of the bill. And I want to make sure that the right party ponies up.
Understood. In terms of the purview of this change order, our position is this is work that the contractor did. It's documented. He made these repairs. He spent 6 hours on this work. He has a contract with you to install your sewer system. He's due this money. Whether there's an issue between the town and the fire district in terms of who ultimately is responsible, it's a gray area and it's a good question, but in terms of the contractor, he did the work and therefore we feel he should be paid for it.
But Mr. Judici, we do have a water department, and I wasn't there that day, so I don't know what happened, but why the contractor did work that we have a water department that should have done, I do have somewhat of an issue with that, and then to turn around and send us a bill for it. I mean, the water district is literally right down the road, and if help was needed to assist, then, you know, I mean, this is where I have I understand that the work is done. I understand that they spent 6 hours on it. But if it's a water district issue and we have a sewer contractor performing work on a water main that's governed by the water district, and then they want to turn around and tell us that we need to pay the bill, I mean, it's a gray area all around. And I get you don't have to go into the hole. They couldn't do anything. There was water I get that. But this isn't just as cut and dry of a situation as it looks on paper. Do you understand what I'm saying?
To an extent, I do, and just to sort of clarify, you know, once the break occurred, the normal operating procedure which they followed was they called the fire district. They came out and shut down the water main. So now you have a number of residents that don't have water. So they need to reinstall the water main to get service back up, in addition to be able to continue on with the sewer work. So in good faith, I guess, they went forward and made that repair to get people back on water service, and so that they could continue their work.
Mr. Judici, getting back on that one now, you did inform the water department, which you normally have to do because you have to shut off the main, correct? As soon as it's broken, you have to call the water department to make sure they come out and shut it off. Now, when they shut it off, was there any dialogue between, are you going to fix it? Is that normal, or do they fix it?
In this particular case, Mr. Cruz, I don't know. I think they just came out and shut down the water main, and I don't know whether there was a discussion or direction from one party or the other. I think the contractor needed to get the water main repaired, so he repaired it so it could go above.
And normally when you bust a pipe, is it normally the contractor does it, or is it the water department that fixes it?
And it depends. Again, in this case, from what we've been told, it's been a combination of the two, depending on the circumstances of that particular situation. And what governed who did it in this case, I can't tell you. I just know that the contractor did it.
Right. And the other thing I just want to remind the board that CDM is working on the project as our project manager, making sure that everything is documented and that we don't get overcharged or everything is operating in the procedure that's supposed to be done in normal construction, day-to-day operations. So CDM had to okay it for them to do it, or else they wouldn't have done it. Is that correct?
In terms of the water main repair?
On the water main. Someone had to give them the okay to fix it.
I don't know that we specifically
What I'd
were
like to do
asked.
is make sure we have the documentation on that, because if the water department did come out
Mhm.
and said for you to fix it, that's one thing. And if it's the normal procedure for you to fix it, then you're our construction manager, and you would have to give them the okay to fix it, unless it's in the contract.
I'm not sure the specifics of this case, Mr. Cruz. If we were, we typically do not direct the contractor to do work. That's not our role. We don't direct them. We observe and make sure the work that they do is done in accordance with the plans and specifications. So it's beyond the scope of our work to tell him to do specific
Well,
tasks.
that's what I'm saying, he's doing Pacific. Now, someone must have told him to do Pacific, or he normally does it. And it's up to you to make sure that we're not, like you said, it was 6 hours, so it was documented. So, right, so he's doing due diligence for the town to make sure that we're not getting charged 10 or
Correct.
12 hours and just 6 hours is due.
And that was done. I just don't want to leave the impression that we told him to fix the water main, because we didn't.
So it's the board's privy, either we're going to pay him now, we're going to pay him later and work it out. It's 5,000, whatever it is, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I understand the guy needs to get paid, but here was the question, as I recall it from last week. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. The question was whether or not we paid the $6,000 under the change order. If we pay the $6,000 under the change order, it goes on the betterment fee. If it's paid outside of that, it doesn't. That was the question that I thought we were going to get updated on this week, so we could get this bill paid. And I thought we were going to see new paperwork with the correct figure, if that was the case.
Well, as far as I know, at our meeting on last Wednesday, they said they were going to do the same paperwork, and if we decide on the 6,000, we would deduct the 6,000 and pay it, and then we'll go from there.
All right.
Because they do need to keep payroll going, so. And I think we did have a figure on that, 155.
Yeah, it was
Minus-
149, 441, 47.
Everyone
Your
get that?
notes. Did you?
No, I'm just saying, make sure everybody got them figure numbers. What was that again, Mr. Holmes?
It was 149, 441, 47.
That's minus the...
That's minus the Part 5, $5,990.89.
So if we're all in agreement, I need a motion to...
I have two questions first,
Okay,
Mr. Cruz,
Miss-
if I may.
Mrs. Begler?
Well, one's kind of an observation, the fact that the contractor, Gioso and Sons, does not have a contract with the Water District. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So they have a contract with the town of Wareham, but not with the Water Department.
Correct.
Okay. My other question is this. I guess my question is, with municipal maintenance, when these things arise, because this isn't the first time a water main has been broken, this isn't the first time a repair has had to be made for whatever reason, does Mr. Gifford get involved with this process? Does Mr. Gifford receives the same documentation this board does? Is that
Correct.
correct? So, if Mr. Gifford received this, did he have any questions about the $5,990 at all,
At the time,
or now?
I spoke with him after we met last week, and he was going to start the process to discuss it with the district, and we haven't discussed it since that point.
When was this work done?
This was last fall.
But is this the first time this board's seen this bill?
This board, yes.
Yes. Has this bill gone to municipal maintenance prior to this time? Or no?
Probably not until...
Right, because usually you bundle them. I understand that. You bundle them and then send them
Correct.
forward as opposed to one or two a week.
Correct.
So Mr. Gifford's going to begin the conversations with the Wareham Water District, is your understanding?
This is my understanding. Correct.
Now, my concern is this, that if Gioso and Sons doesn't have a contract with the town, is this their, for lack of a better word, is this their issue because, or is it the town's issue? Because we have the contract. So should we be paying this and then seeking reimbursement from the water district? And that's just a question to the board.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Winslow?
I agree that those are part of the issues, but the other part of the issue is that I think in the end we're going to have no choice but to pay this, and I doubt we're ever going to see a dime from the water district because they believe that they've done a great deal of work because of the SOAR project that they wouldn't have had to do. And it really doesn't make all that much sense for our town officials who have a lot to do to spend their time, throwing sand at each other in the sandbox. But here's my issue. If this contractor is going to go ahead and fix a water main for a district that they don't have a contract for, I don't ever want to see another one of these bills in front of me, because he needs to go to the water district and get permission from the water district to do that work. Or he needs to contact the construction manager and ensure that this truly falls under, because I don't believe, and Mr. Andrews can certainly consult with town council, I don't believe that we can pay this out of anything but the betterment. And that's, I have a real issue with this whole situation, Mr. Giudice, and I don't know how it is that something that happened last fall is, suddenly before us and nobody knew about it. And, I'm going to tell you, I'm having a hard time with this whole situation. But I don't want this to happen again in the future. If the water district needs a contractor to come in and fix a water main, then it's up to the water district to contract with a contractor. It's not up to us or the SOAR users to be paying those bills. That's my opinion. Now, if the contractor broke the pipe, then he would be responsible under the contract. In this particular case, it seems that the disturbance of the dirt in that area may have been what caused the failure of the pipe. Who knows? Obviously, we don't just go digging around to see if water pipes are leaking. So, but I have serious reservations about this.
Well, getting back to your statement about going to the water district and having them contract it out and put it back out, what happens is in construction, if you do that, the contractor has a legitimate right to have downtime, and we'll have to pay them for every time for remobilizing, and it might take 3 days, a week, 2 weeks. So normally the quickest way is, when I was out there, is to have them do it and just pay them. Now, there's been more leaks on that, more breaks between number 1 and number 2 than we have here. And this is only, I think, the first one that we have for back charge.
This is the only one, yes, sir.
It's the only one.
All
So,
the pipe is installed, so
right. So most of them have been broken and repaired.
Correct.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, it was a scene in Forrest Gump, but I won't repeat it. We're talking about $6,000 now. I attended, as you know, for quite a while, the meetings on Wednesday mornings at the trailer. And I can tell you, through you to Mrs. Winslow and anyone on the board, that Giosa and Son has spent a great deal of money in this town doing work that they were not paid for. Am I correct, Michael, or not?
Yes, sir.
When you look at the overall project, and I understand the points, my only point with this is I don't want to see this get slapped on somebody's betterment fee, because it really is kind of a little bit outside the scope, and I'm sure if we sat down with the water department, we could figure out $6,000. But I won't sit here and watch the contractor get bashed. This is a main water break. We had families with no water. It needed to be fixed. Mr. Giosa did not break this pipe with a piece of equipment. He didn't have an accident. The ground moved. It happens. So he fixed it. $6,000. It's not a lot in the scope of the project. But, my other concern was, hey, maybe that shouldn't hit somebody's betterment, but we need to pay it. He needs to get paid. But I don't want to sit here and listen to Giosa this, Giosa that, Giosa this, because I can sit here for an hour and go back and get all my notes and tell you everything Giosa did for free to help the town out over the course of Project 1 and Project 2. So I don't want to see Giosa bashing, because that's not right. When you look at the total projects that they've done, Project 1 and Project 2, they've come in well under the marginal percentage allowed under contracts. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but they're available. So I don't want to hear the contractor getting bashed here. My only question is, again, is that, and if there were some of the, because we have not set the contract to betterment fee yet, because it's not completed, but if there were stuff like this in there, we might just want to review it before we set that, because if there are other numbers, Mike, it might be able to bring down the cost of the betterment a couple of bucks for people. And a couple of bucks is a lot of money today. So those are my comments on this. But we need to pay this bill, and if we can get reimbursed from the water district, in the end, it'll show the money coming in, and it'll keep the betterment fee down. But this guy does need to get paid. Those are my comments.
Okay, with that,
Thank
we're going
you.
to end the discussion, and we're either going to take a vote either to pay it as written, the 155, or with the subtraction of...
I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to pay change order number 2. Put my glasses on.
highlighted.
Change order number 2, contract number 3022, in the amount of $155,432.36.
Second.
Motion made and second by Mrs. Begley. Since we already had a
Oh, shit.
discussion.
And your paperwork.
No, that's all right. You can mark on it. If you want to, you can take it.
Ellen, you seconded that?
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? 500.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd further, at this time, I'd make a request through you to Mr. Andrews. Mr. Andrews, just to speak with Mr. Gifford and follow up on his communications with the water department on this, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Steve, did you want this?
No,
You
that's
got
yours.
notes?
No, I have a copy of that. I thought we were going to get a new one this week. That's why I didn't. We have no licenses this evening. Town administrator's report.
Just one second.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Giudice.
Oh,
and
my
we
God.
don't need him for anything else. Is that
Just wanna
correct?
Make sure I don't leave you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much, Mike.
Heads in a fog.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to start off with leadership team update. Tonight, I just wanted to mix things up a little bit. We have Mr. Mike Ciccone from Scholarly Square Investment LLC. Mr. Ciccone has been working with a number of communities throughout the Commonwealth of Mass. They're in your packet that you have tonight. I just wanted to start a discussion. Please, Mike. Thank you. Start a discussion with regards to outstanding municipal delinquent tax collections and how that's going around the Commonwealth. As I talk to other municipal managers and town administrators and mayors, I'm hearing that we need to think outside the box as it relates to this type of activity. And once again, I asked Mike to come and provide us with a update from what he's seeing in the marketplace. We met with Mr. Foster. We are working on discussions relative to how this might fit into our collections systems. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Ciccone.
Thank you. Okay, thanks very.
Identify yourself and go on from there.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm not used to the microphone. You know,
There you go.
my grandfather was an auctioneer, and I grew up doing auctions with him every Saturday night, and I'm used to just bellowing at roomfuls of people. So this is a little this is a little strange. We used to run the auctions in Medway every Saturday night. One of the fellows that would come ran a flea market down here. I don't know if you remember. This was showing my age, but he had a little flea market out on Route 28 in Wareham. So we'd have the auction on Saturday and then have the flea market on Sunday. He's he's probably got some of the stuff we sold him at the auction over there. So at any rate. I've got this little, it's essentially a slideshow, and I feel if anybody wants to interrupt at any time, go ahead. I can be as brief or as detailed as you like. This is kind of an interesting area when you get into this. This is property tax collection is this very not recognized area in the Commonwealth. There are, in fiscal year 2010, a little bit over $900 million in uncollected real estate taxes in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And when you consider the state budget is $31 billion, it's an enormous amount of money. And it's sort of hidden money that cities and towns don't realize they can access. And I'll give you a little bit of the history of how we got here and what it's all been. The second page, you can see, this is from the Department of Revenue. The town of Wareham has over $3 million in delinquent property taxes as of June. I've been involved with first Bear Stearns. They went the way of all flesh in the financial crisis, and more recently with J.P. Morgan. I've worked as a consultant to them and have, in one way or another, I've been involved with property tax liens for a little over 15 years, all around Massachusetts, and it's sort of coming of age now. This essentially what I'm going to talk to you about is the idea of the town, taking delinquent taxes and assigning them to myself, to a third party, or someone like myself, to a company that buys the tax liens or delinquent taxes. And there's a lot, this is a very common practice around the United States. It's Florida, Ohio, New Jersey. New Jersey, by law, must sell delinquent taxes. There are 473 cities and towns in New Jersey. By law, when you go delinquent after a year, they have to sell them off. And I can tell you that there's a lot of misconceptions, and people have the notion that this is, everybody's seen A Christmas Carol, where Scrooge has Bob Cratchit who works for him and Tiny Tim, and they assume that's what tax lien collection is about. And the realities are really interesting because it's not what it's like. But let me just go through this quickly and give you the overview, and then we can get into more specifics. In the last few years, there have been bulk sales. Cities and towns have started to put their portfolios together and sell them off. Typically, they're sold at full value. There's not discounting. And the reason is that delinquent taxes accrue interest at very high interest rates. They start at 14%. When you put the tax title on, it goes to 16%. And it's a very attractive business to, the groups that buy these make interest on them. As a rule, they don't last long. About half of tax liens are paid off in 9 or 10 months. Not a small amount go to foreclosure, and once they get into foreclosure, most of them get paid off. Very, very few really get to, and I'll get into the reasons for that, actually get foreclosed. The reason this is going on in Massachusetts is in 2005, the legislature changed Chapter 60, which governs local taxation, and they added a section called Section 2C. Pretty much modernized the sale of tax liens and brought it on a footing that was common to other jurisdictions in the U.S. In Massachusetts, there are a number of protections in Chapter 2C for taxpayers. And outside of the statute, there are other functions. All tax foreclosures go through the land court in Boston. I don't know if anybody's had any good, bad, or indifferent the land court is extremely sensitive to taxpayers and extremely concerned that taxpayers have every opportunity to pay off. It's a very closed. I mean, I know all the judges. I've been in there for a long time, and they're very, very sensitive to taxpayers. As you can see, there are a number of communities that have sold their tax liens. Worcester, Methuen, Haverhill, Norwell, Weymouth, Hopkinton, Framingham, Marlborough. City of Lowell is just about to do it. Fitchburg will do it. Up near where I live, Beverly and Peabody will do it. Somerville, I know, will do it. The reason that it's attractive, what happens is this. Under the law, on July 1st, taxes are due. And they're not paid, they're delinquent. They start accruing 14% interest on the collector's side. The Department of Revenue allows cities and towns to book the entire tax levy as if it's collected. I don't know why they do that. I think the philosophy was they think property taxes always get paid. The reality in the real world is that if you have 10,000 assessed parcels, it's like having 10,000 customers. And whether you sold property taxes or whether you sold sporting goods, not everybody pays you on time. So there's no way in reality that out of 10,000 accounts, you're going to have a few hundred that are delinquent. Over time, it snowballs. And cities and towns, treasurers are typically, collectors and treasurers are local people. They're locally, they're ties to the community. They don't want to, actually in this environment, in the last few years with the staff cutbacks and the budget cutbacks, not only do they not want to collect it, I mean, they don't want to aggressively collect, they don't want to go after people. They can't. They don't have the budget anymore. I talk to treasurers that they don't have the time. They just, it's just impossible for them to, they have hard enough time keeping up with the people who do pay, let alone thinking about the delinquencies they have. So what happens is, and you can kind of go to I think about the 6th page, you'll see a chart in Wareham. And it shows you, this is all from the DOR. These are the tax titles and the delinquent taxes for the last few years. It's just like running a credit card balance. The town has about $3 million that it ultimately you'll collect the stuff from 5 years ago, but in a sense you never collect it. It's like a running balance of several $1 million. This is quite typical of what we see around the Commonwealth. It's just I call it a treadmill. That was the couple of slides that you see before. You never really get down to zero. You never collect 100% of your accounts. The one approach, a solution that cities and towns are latching onto, is to sell the portfolio. You put it out for bid. Contractors like myself will come in, and typically we buy. The way it works is we buy everything we can. What that means is we'll pay 100 cents on the dollar for every possible account we can. What happens, given the existing, the way things have evolved, is that a lot of the portfolio, the taxes have grown beyond the value of the real estate. We sat, Mr. Andrews and Mr. Foster and I sat, and one of the discussions was a pretty significant subdivision. I don't know how long it's been around. Probably very viable property. It's not wetlands. It's not it has some economic value, and it's got a sizable. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars are on all of the 18 lots are due, but it's. Mr. Foster thought it's probably more than the current market value, especially in this tough housing market where there's not new development and so on. Well, under the law, I have to pay you all the taxes due and at least 50% of the interest. Under the law, even if I paid that, I still couldn't make it work. So I think what will happen in the next year or two, the legislature will go back and amend 2C to allow those types of situations to be addressed. But for the moment, I think the informal discussion we had is about half of the $3 million is viable and could be sold at 100 cents on the dollar. Okay? So when you do this, what happens? I mean, I don't know, is anybody delinquent on their tax? Should I, should I not talk? A lot of taxpayers are hysterical. They feel that, they're going to be kicked out of their house in 48 hours. It's not what happens. In fact, we really don't, beyond the fact that we notify them and let them know that we have the tax obligation, we don't aggressively collect. We let them know. We can put them on a payment plan, but we don't have to call them. We don't have to be nasty. It doesn't have to be it's not a typical collection scenario. What happens, though, the benefit for the town is that you're made whole. You get all your taxes on those accounts. You get all your interest, and then taxes still. The other thing is, once we take a tax account, it's not in here. We will then start to pay the subsequent taxes. So the next quarter, the next fiscal year comes up. Under the law, if those aren't paid, we will pay them and add them to the tax account. And in all honesty, the reality is that there's not a lot that you get a good interest rate on these days, and this is a very attractive interest rate. But again, it's a short-lived. Most of these accounts are resolved in pretty quick fashion. Another significant point, this is in this where it says the solution number 2. The way tax law is that property taxes are against the property. They're not against the owner. And they're against all encumbrances on the title. So any property that has a mortgage on it, the bank must actually pay the taxes to preserve their mortgage. So like Mr. Foster said in our meeting, what he's seeing is the payoffs he's getting, a lot of them are from the banks. They will then add the taxes to the mortgage, which they can do under Chapter 60, and they collect, they get paid on the mortgage however they get paid. So the banks will step in at some point in time and make the account, satisfy the account. One interesting thing I see in the field is that not all banks are created equal. Some of them wait until the last minute, and until they're pushed, they don't do it. And I don't know why they have, why one bank keeps up on it and why others don't. But in this, unlike the last recession, in this environment, most of the banks are paying these tax obligations. The thing you don't see, and I am in a lot of city halls, town halls, and a lot of municipal officials, maybe you folks are different, but the treasurers, the collectors, and even sometimes the assessors, they don't get out in the field all that much. They can't. They're swamped with what they do. And what they don't see is what happens to the properties, whether they're housing or commercial, when the taxes go delinquent. It brings on a lot of blight. And I think, and I could show you, you can see this is actual photos of Revere. There was one property that was in a nice neighborhood, 7 years. It was boarded up after a fire. And until it was pushed, it would have sat there forever. The other thing that I see, and it's really kind of a hidden reality, and this is after doing this for 15 years, nobody likes to pay taxes. I don't like to pay mine. I pay them, I pay my property taxes, and it's, I'd rather spend the money at Fenway Park or the Boston Garden or something, But you pay them. And nobody likes to collect, and nobody wants to be, to push people to pay. But what I see is that if you don't collect these taxes in the first few years that they're delinquent, it balloons out of control. And whether they're commercial or residential, if you're trying to get $2,000 or $3,000 from somebody, it's one story. And if you try to be, and you have the best of intentions, and some of these tax title accounts you see everywhere are 5 and 6 and 8 years. I've got one 8 years old, and it's fellow owes it's an office building, $98,000 on it. He's never going to pay it. If he'd done it when it was a $10,000 delinquency, the town would have been satisfied, and he'd keep his property. And that's what I see. Municipal people have the best of intentions, and they let this, they just let it just balloons out of control past the point where people can address it. Anyway, what happens with Chapter 2C? City or town puts out a request for bids. It's also possible to do this by public auction, but I would really strongly advise against it. Because when you do it at public auction, anybody can buy the tax liens. And you want to control who you work with. You want to have a contractor that understands local politics and understands the needs of the constituents and the sensitivity of something like this. And you don't want to just sell it off to any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Under the law, if there's any, if there's a problem, if there's accounts you want back, you can buy them back at any point in time. You can take them back from the sale. There's not a lot else to it. You put an ad in the paper, 60-day notice. It's all public record. You'd be surprised how many people come in and pay when you put the ad in the paper, where they find the money. I don't know.
Mike, thank you. That's
I don't know what else
a
I've
great
done.
overview.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. Any questions or any?
And let me just say, because I talked with a couple of the treasurers around the state, the issue here isn't that we haven't been doing a good job. We have. We had an auction back summer of 2010, and sold off about $250,000. But we're just never going to catch up. It has to be in a larger form.
It's a structural problem. And I think over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years it'll become widespread. In Wareham, it's not to point the finger, because I said it's all over the Commonwealth like this. Wareham doesn't have $900 million in delinquencies. The Commonwealth does, and it's just too much money in this economic environment to sit there when you can get made whole on it.
Right, and Mr. Chairman, when you look at options that we have, and we have taken some of them up, including the meals and motels tax at the last town meeting, this is an outside-the-box option that can bring us, say it's one half, Mike, just kind of, if it's 50%, $1.5 million of one-time money, and I think of the capital needs that we have, I think of the one-time needs that we have, and I'm just thinking aloud to the point that, let's try to find some way to catch up, to stay below a certain number, and once again, this has nothing to do with Mr. Foster and his offices, because they've done very creative things to try to get these dollars taken in. But some of these go back to the 1980s. Some of these are outstanding. They go back a long time. So in the research that we did, we just wanted to really present kind of like a white paper, which Mike has done, and get some feedback and some general discussion going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. You have my, you know where to find me.
I have a question. So this is kind of subcontracting out the tax liens.
Yeah.
I understand that. My question is you got my attention when you mentioned a property that is probably owes more than it's worth at this point.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's that's with taxes. Unfortunately, that's happened to a lot of people. They overextended, the bottom dropped out of the real estate market, et cetera, et cetera. Are you seeing a higher percentage of these properties that owe more than they're worth? And if so, what happens to those properties?
Well, those situations are a product of what remember Senator Moynihan, benign neglect, meaning that didn't happen overnight. That they couldn't, because so it's not the taxes are not really the problem with properties being underwater in this economy. As you know, the mortgage situation is responsible for that. Under the current situation, the only remedy for that particular property, it's not viable under the existing law to assign it. The only remedy would be for the town to foreclose it, and then to do an auction, or to do it, to just sell it privately. Yeah, I'm an auctioneer, I could sell it for you. But that's the only remedy. Now, I've met several times with the Lieutenant Governor, and the Department of the DOR, the local Mr. Nunes, who used to be the mayor in Taunton, and he's now running the local services at DOR, and Speaker DeLeo. And I think we're going to propose that they amend the law, so it's going to be a little tricky, because what you don't want is the taxpayer who owes you $600,000 coming back and buying that for $200,000 and getting out of the taxes. So I think what will happen is the way it used to happen with the resolution trust, that under the law that would not be legal. It would somehow, you have to, it's at your, I would say it would have to be at the discretion of the town to take bids on it and either accept or reject the bids. But there's a lot of money in that property. That works at some level. It's just that the taxes have grown beyond the market value, any kind of market value of that property now.
Well, as unfair as it may be that it's $600,000 property and the person buys it back for $200,000, I mean, that's certainly not the most ethical solution. However, $200,000 is better than
Right,
nothing.
yeah. But I think what you'd see is contractors like ourselves would come in and you'd
Oh,
do better
absolutely.
than
So
that.
there's a loophole in the law, no question,
Yeah.
the way you've described it. But, so, who collects the 14 to 16%?
Once it's assigned,
Yes.
we do.
So that's where it's
That's the
lucrative for your,
incentive, right.
that's how it's lucrative for your
Sure,
organization.
Although it's very labor intensive,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the nature of the business. It's an interest rate driven business.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Yeah, just one quick question, if you don't mind. I understand, and it actually touches on Selectman Begley's question of who collects the 14 to 16% interest. You said that by law you must provide the town with the amount of the outstanding taxes plus 50% of the interest?
At least.
At least 50% of the
Correct.
interest. So what is the margin? What is the additional 50% margin?
No, I'm saying that's the minimum bid I could make. Now, we're talking about this land, for instance. The statute says that's the minimum I can bid for anything, or that any bidder could bid. I think in practice it doesn't work like that. It's either the taxes are far below the value of the property, and I can bid 100 cents on the dollar, or the taxes are far beyond the value of the property, and even if I discount the interest 50%, I can't make it work. I can't. See, the trick is, and this is a business, it's not so much, there's an old saying, it's not so much the return on my money as the return of my money. That I just the nature of the business is you just want to make some interest, but you have to get the money back. And you just have to know that the value, you can't, it's a tough real estate market. I mean, you have to be realistic about what values are. So, I think the legislature put that together thinking that would make a lot of stuff work, that you'd bid, you could discount the interest a little bit, and then it would move a lot of the tax liens, but it just doesn't.
I understand. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all.
Mike, for
Mr.
being here
Chair?
tonight. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, is it possible for us to get the treasurer collector on a future agenda to talk about this type of,
Yeah, I think that'll be a good idea, as long as we don't, I hope we can be more concise and to the point. I said, I hope we can be more concise and to the point if we ever come back
I
again.
make a speech?
So, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks for it.
Right,
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I can move on to the second item under item A, I want to introduce Ms. Ginger Hastings, who is with Group Benefit Solutions, who are our healthcare advisors. And a funny thing happened on the way to the forum with Chapter 69, which is a new healthcare law for municipalities. And Ginger's been working very closely with us and our fiscal staff, personnel staff, to look at a number of different options. And I wanted her to be here to give you an update, once again, just an update as to what's happening out there. I've put on the agenda a number of items, including Section 26 on dependent audits, Ginger. So just to give the board an update as to what's happening per your perspective.
Sure, thank you. Again, my name is Ginger Hastings, and I'm with Group Benefit Strategies. And there has been some significant changes in Mass municipal health care reform that went through with the budget this year. And the biggest changes are the addition of 3 new sections of 32B, sections 21, 22, and 23. These 3 sections basically remove the requirement for collective bargaining to make changes to your health plans. Historically, if you wanted to make any types of changes, such as copay changes, deductible changes, you would have to do that through a collective bargaining process. The new chapter 21, 22, and 23 takes away that collective bargaining piece, but it does add a little bit more work to you. Basically, section 21 is the process, what you have to do to go through the law. Section 22 is actually making plan design changes up to a benchmark plan. So they're giving you a benchmark. You cannot exceed the benchmark, and assuming you don't exceed the benchmark, you'll be all set. Section 23 is actually transferring your subscribers to the Group Insurance Commission. The Group Insurance Commission is pretty much the insurance for all state workers. They have over 231,000 members on the plan. And so you could then, if you wanted to go into the GIC, Section 23 would allow you to do that, with one caveat. In order to go into the GIC, you have to prove that you could achieve at least a 5% or greater savings than if you make the plan design changes on your own as a town. So basically, to go through this process, you first have to determine, A, where are my plan designs today? B, where do we go as far as plan design changes not to exceed the benchmark? And then C, can we achieve an additional 5 or more % savings in order to get into the GIC? It's not everybody's goal to get into the GIC. Some cities and towns can save a significant amount of money by doing so. Depending upon where you're located, we're finding those cities and towns that may be closer to Boston that are using the Mass Generals and the Leahy clinics, the more high-cost hospitals, are achieving much more savings than maybe some of the folks that are further spread out or in the suburban area. Section 21 is a local option. If you decide to adopt Section 21, that would be done by the Board of Selectmen. The appropriate public authority that would then be charged, which would be the town administrator, with determining savings, whether it be to make plan design changes or to go to the GIC. Once they make that determination, the determination would be based on the first 12 months of when the plan was to go into effect. The appropriate public authority or the town would then notify your insurance advisory committee and put them on notice that the town is intending on making changes, whether it be plan design changes or go to the GIC, and give them all the backup documentation, all of the information that you made in order to get to that point. It goes even further beyond that, because once you meet with your insurance advisory committee, it is advisory, and that is it. You also have to tell all of your union presidents that you are going to make changes or intending to make changes. And you would then form a PEC, which is a public employee committee. And that would be made up of one union representative from every one of your unions and a retiree that would be appointed by the Retiree Association in Boston. Once the PEC convenes, you have a expedited bargaining process. It's a 30-day bargaining process. And frankly, as long as you have not exceeded the benchmark plans that we have been given, plan design has to happen. What you're really bargaining is the savings. Part of the law does speak to the fact that up to 25% of the total savings can be used in mitigation to help low-income employees that would be affected by these changes, because their out-of-pocket expenses are going to be significantly higher or possibly higher than what they're used to today. So there is a discussion during that 30 days, and it is also part of the proposal of up to 25%, what is the town going to give back to the employees and retirees. If after the 30 days there is no agreement, it goes to a panel. The panel is a 3-member panel. It would be one person from the Public Employee Committee. It would be one person from the town, and then it'd also be somebody from A&F that would be assigned by the Administration and Finance. They then have, I believe, 10 days to make determination if the savings are there or if you can go to the GIC, and basically things move along pretty quickly from that point. If you, again, have not exceeded the benchmark plans, plan design happens, they may come back and say, renegotiate, maybe you only offered 18% of the savings, they think you should do 22. That's a little bit of the negotiation that's going to happen. And then really, if you want to get into the GIC, you have to prove that the savings are there to get into the GIC. Once that takes place, that is a binding decision by the 3-member panel. You have to give at least 60 days notice to your employees and retirees that you're making these changes once the panel has made the decision or you come to agreement with your PEC. So the process in itself of sections 21 through 23, if it was adopted by the town, is about 125 days to get plan design changes in. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, there are some other pieces of it, such as you do have to do an audit every 2 years. That's required to make sure that the people on your plan should be on your plan. You'll also have to adopt section 18, which you have already done as a town, which requires your Medicare eligible folks to purchase Part B and go on a senior plan. So some of the things you've done in the past, but this is giving you now the ability to make some changes without having to go through the collective bargaining process.
Ginger, thank you. I just wanted to introduce some of these ideas. This is brand new. This law passed in July or August, and so we'll be talking and having discussions about this, but I just wanted the board to be updated on the processes, and some of these regulations recently have been adopted by the Department of A&F. So,
and the regs are not complete yet, just so you know. And
Sure.
if you do decide to go through the process, it is very specific on the number of days and when notifications have to go out. They have to be certified mail. It's very, very specific if you want to go through it, so you really want to make sure you have a labor attorney involved. And technically, you couldn't even vote on this tonight if you wanted to, because you would have had to have notified all your unions that you were going to discuss this or going to take a vote on this.
This is purely informational.
Sure, just wanted to, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the board? No? Okay, thank you. You want to continue?
Thank you, Mr.
very
Chairman.
Thank you.
much.
Have a
Thank you,
nice
Ginger.
night. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item B, today, Selectwoman Begley and myself attended the Joint Legislative Committee on Housing, and at that hearing, I testified on behalf of the administration relative to House Bill 362, an act relative to the definition of low and moderate income housing. And we spent, it was a pretty good day on Beacon Hill today, I'd say, Selectwoman Begley. And so with that, Representative Gifford has filed this legislation for, I believe, the past 5 years. It is trying to get us credit for low, moderate income housing, manufactured housing in the Commonwealth. There'll be a discussion going on to move this bill out of committee, and we were, I would say, widely received in the House of Representatives and recognized by the Speaker of the House as representing the town of Wareham today, and I want to thank Selectwoman Begley for her support and work on this matter. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to expeditiously move through this. We received, and you should have notification in your packet, that we received an $18,653 grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, which will help us bring an article that had already passed town meeting this past spring, bring that cost down to the town. I've asked Dave Pichette to keep us updated on that, and he's assisting with this matter. Item D, you have in your packet the Chief's report for the month of September. I also wanted to report last Thursday, I attended the Mass Municipal day-long meeting that is included in your packet at Shrewsbury with regards to current state of the affairs and from finance to personnel to a number of other areas. And I also just wanted to note on the item E that Tractor Supply is coming. We do have Spencer Gifts that is going to work through the Halloween season, and then we will be having Tractor Supply join us over in Cranberry Plaza. Status reports for DECUS safety issues remain the same. Once again, continue to work with school committee. And town hall virtualization, let me just give you an update on that. Matt Underhill is working very hard. We're receiving a number of computer components, including some of the thin clients, and also we're waiting. We just got confirmation that we will be receiving servers very shortly. We had to address a number of electrical issues with regards to demand at Town Hall and also at the police station, and those have been worked out to date. And so we're working to basically pull the project together, and that's the update as of this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk? Unless there's any questions from the board?
Sorry. Next up, we have the AD Makepeace development update. I did see in the packets that they did send out that report. I also saw that Jim Kane couldn't be here tonight. It'd be really nice if we could have them do it. I would. I think he said that he would come in another date if we could just rearrange the date. That was an answer to
Do you want to make a
TA's
motion
question.
to put it on for another date?
Well, yeah. I mean, are we in the through you to Mr. Andrews? Are we in the process of firming up a date with Jim to come?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you to the clerk, Steve, we are trying to get a date. He could not be here tonight, as you have indicated.
Right. And so I would just postpone this until Jim comes, and then we already have the report, and then we can discuss it at that point. Next up, I saw Cedar had also canceled their appearance tonight because they couldn't meet yet. So I would discount B as well. Bay Point Country Club, right of first refusal. There's people speaking. Mark, are you speaking? Oh.
Mr.
Can I help you?
I believe that we were on the agenda for C.
He's from DCU.
Oh, okay. Have you got something for the board?
No, it's on the agenda that we were going to discuss the
Oh,
right
the
of
issue
first.
is on the agenda, right? But nothing new
Right.
from digital at
Well,
this point?
No, as you know, my name is Mark Harriman. I'm
Right.
from Digital Credit Union. We had put forth a request for this board to waive its 60-day right of first refusal, as we have secured an offer on the property for $1.7 million. And I believe that was in your package from last week.
It was.
So it was put over until tonight, I believe, so that you could discuss the matter further with your town council.
Yeah, there were two issues, as I recall, from last week. One was the Cedar discussion, and two was having town council look at the letter to make sure it was appropriate, and then it was detailed enough in a regular bona fide type of offer to the town. I didn't see anything back from Rich Bowen. Did anybody?
Yes.
He did
You did?
respond. Yes.
He wrote back this afternoon, Mr. Chair,
You-
through you. In fact, I saved it because I figured somebody might not have it.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Winslow. What did she say again?
I don't know. Both of you talking, I'm getting confused. Mrs. Winslow, you want to go ahead and...
Yes, Mr. Chair. Attorney Bowen did respond this afternoon. He did state that the waiver is acceptable as to the legal form, which was one of the issues we asked him to address. One of the questions that I had was the petitioned article at town meeting, because we, as a board, a citizen's petition article has to go forward at town meeting. They're the only people that can withdraw it. And my concern was that if we vote, we sort of make that a moot point, and we may be stepping on some toes.
Didn't Attorney Bowen address that in the email?
Well, he didn't, he addressed it sort of, but he addressed it by saying that the petitioners will be moving for further study with respect to the article, so, that was the information he had.
I didn't see
Mr.
the
Holt.
email, Mr. Chairman.
That's all the email said. I haven't spoke to the petitioners myself, so I'm not.
Myself, I haven't gotten an email this afternoon because I haven't been on the computer, but
Yeah, those were the only 2 points in his email. That's exactly what he wrote, other than, I think, hi and, stuff
in your
like that.
contract to the new buyers, and they realize it's a 60-day waiting period.
That's correct. They've been informed of that, yes.
Right, okay, so there isn't any problem if we wait until after town meeting?
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is an operating business,
Right.
and DCU as a mortgagee, while we have operated it in good faith, we are not golf course operators, and we would like to be able to move this forward as quickly as possible. I understand that there is a warrant there, but that warrant doesn't address the fact that it's not for sale for $1.4 million. I don't know who put the warrant forward. Nobody has contacted me for any financial information regarding the property or the level of working capital requirements or additional investment it's going to require. So we would like to be able to move it forward. You do have the option of not addressing it. That is correct. But we'd like to get it into a developer's hands as soon as possible because there's enough work that needs to be done now for next year to make sure that it gets to the top level that it needs to.
Mr. Chairman,
Mike?
through you to my fellow board members and Mr. Town Administrator, I understand that we have a document in front of us asking us to waive an offer for the Bay Point Country Club, or our option.
The town's option.
Right. But what I haven't seen is I haven't seen in my hand, and maybe I'm missing it in my board packet, I haven't seen an actual valid offer. I've just heard a number thrown about.
No, it was in your packet last week.
It was a letter, that's all.
It was a signed letter of intent.
Right. And that's one of the questions I had from council tonight.
Right.
Is it actually an offer? Usually you see a purchase and sale agreement or something with detail in the offer so that you can analyze that when you make a decision whether you want to refuse it or not.
I agree. Or a memorandum of
I
understanding.
didn't see Rich Bowen's email.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Wisler?
if I may, through you, Mr. Harriman, I understand your frustration and your desire to move forward as quick as possible, and it's not that I disagree with you or that I agree with you, but you need to understand that regardless of what the petitioned article says, if a citizen comes forward and petitions town meeting that the Board of Selectmen shall dress in purple and pink polka dots every Tuesday night, there's nothing we can't do anything about that. People have a right to come to town meeting and ask for things. In this particular article, they're looking, to secure $1.4 million. You've sold the property or have an intent for $1.7 million. That couldn't have been known at the time that the petitioned article was written. So we're 2 weeks away from town meeting. My suggestion would be, Mr. Chair, that perhaps you reach out to the town moderator and confirm that these petitioners are in fact looking to withdraw or further study the article, and maybe we can, once we have that confirmed, we can address that. Because Attorney Bowen did not actually address my question, and that was if we waive our right of first refusal tonight or tomorrow, and we have a petitioned article that goes to town meeting, and let's say town meeting votes in favor of it, then what happens?
But the property is not for sale for $1.4 million.
Well,
So
Mr. Chair, this is not a debate with $1.4 million. We have a petition article on town meeting. If $1.4 million is stated in the article, however, it does talk about eminent domain by the town. And again, citizens put this on the warrant. We're within our 60-day window, right? The 25th. We're still well within that. If the letter, and I hadn't seen Attorney Bowen's response, I would rather have seen it from Jay to make sure that it's appropriate. But I've seen more detailed offers in my lifetime than that letter I got, and I went home and read it 3 or 4 times this week. So, I don't have an issue with that. I wish the people well who are going to buy the place, but we have to do what's right for the town. 1, we have a petition article. 2, we have 60 days to do our due diligence on our side. I don't care what's happened in the last 50 years. I don't care what happens this year, right now, and into the future. So I have no issue with putting this off. It doesn't hurt the sale of the golf course. It does. I mean, the golf season's winding down. How much operation have we got left? We're already into October. So, I mean, I don't see what 3 more weeks. I don't see the issue in 3 weeks.
Well, we do have, 2 more weeks for town meeting, and it shouldn't last more than 2 or 3 days. So right after that, we can, if whatever town meeting votes on, and like you said, they got 1.4, you're selling it for 1.7. I think it's a no-brainer for us to decide. But if they want to make sure that the people have a say, we'll go ahead and let the people have a say, and then we'll make the decision as soon as possible right after town meeting. And like I said before, it's not going to sell for 1.4. And we're in dire straits now as a town, so do we want to take on more responsibility? It'll probably be brought up when they bring it up at the petition, so if the board doesn't have anything else, we just wait until after town meeting? Unless someone else has a suggestion?
I kind of thought
Wanna
that's
have a
what we
motion?
were doing. I thought that's what we had
Go ahead.
decided last
Right.
week. That's why I was a little surprised.
Just
to
make a
see
motion
this.
on that, Mr. Clerk, if you want. Did we
Make a
wait
motion. On what?
We'll wait until after town meeting?
To revisit the right of first refusal. And I'd like to make a motion that we reschedule the right of first refusal for Tuesday night, October 25th, if town meeting is over. And second, I'd like to see a detailed report from town council, from Mr. Jay, on that letter to make sure that it is exactly what we should be getting.
Well, we do have the meeting on the 25th, as you...
25th, right, but we
Right,
don't
well,
know if with the new bingo system whether
Right,
this
whether
thing
it's
will be
going to
done,
come up.
right?
If not, it could be the first.
So it'd be the 25th. If it's done then we can wrap it up on the 25th.
So the first Tuesday after town meeting
Yeah, it'll be
concludes.
the
What is
first.
that?
It'll
The
be
first
of
Tuesday, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I think your motion wants to be the first Tuesday after town meeting concludes, so that
No,
would...
after this article's taken
November. After
out.
the article, not, because the town meeting might go on and the article is over with the bingo system now.
Right.
Or the lottery, whatever you want to call
Lottery
it.
system.
That's what I'm trying to say. So the first Tuesday after the conclusion of, because you could, let's say this doesn't come up on the 24th.
Right,
Well,
as
that's
soon
what
as
we're
the
saying.
article comes up and is voted on, if
But
it's
you
voted
said-
down, then we can go ahead and do it the next day.
Right.
Even though town, like Mr. Holmes said, even if it goes on, if it finishes on Monday, then we can vote on it on Tuesday.
Right.
If not, we'll just wait until the 1st
Right.
of November,
That works.
or
All
whenever
right,
the
Mark.
article comes forward.
Does that work for you, Mr. Harriman? Work?
He says he's going to have to, right?
That's correct. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your wait.
All right, next up is the discussion of policy 88-2. Yeah, there were some updates I saw. But as I looked through 55 quick, didn't it address everything that we were talking about for the most part?
So, Mr. Cruz,
Through you to Mrs. Begley.
Mr. Begley?
I think everybody in the board received it. Policy number 5-02 replaces 88-2 and 89-08.
Right.
This was not in the policy binder that I received. So, which kind of makes me a little concerned. I just want to be sure that the policies that I'm making determinations about are updated.
If Mr.
So
Chairman,
as of right now, we do have the updated one, the 8908 plus the 0502, which supersedes all of it. Did you want to read it out? Or no?
Well, if I might, the thing that concerned me last week was, and I think this policy addresses it, was the fact that we appoint, the Board of Selectmen, and this relates to those boards and committees that we appoint. If those boards and committees want to use the service of town council, they need a vote of their board, and then they need to present that to this board. That's the organizational chart. And then at that point, the chair can either contact town council or work with the town administrator. If a department head requires services, then that department head would go up their organizational chart to the town administrator. And these are two separate issues. The town administrator has nothing to do with a local board or commission. That's appointed by the Board of Selectmen. That needs to come through here first, because otherwise, I'm not saying it would happen, but it very could possibly happen that the chairman of the fire alarm committee goes to Mr. Andrews. He says okay, and they're off with town council, and the five of us have no clue.
Okay, Mr. Holt,
Right?
if you don't mind, would you read this out? Because right now you're giving your opinion. Just read it, and then we'll,
You want me to
we'll
read
be
it?
straight for everybody.
It says request for opinion or use of services at town council shall first be initiated by a vote of the majority of a town board, committee, or commission, or by a department head. The chair of the board, committee, commission shall then forward such a request to the Board of Selectmen, together with the purpose of the service. Any town department head requesting an opinion of town council shall forward such request to the town administrator with the purpose of that service. If the town administrator agrees that the purpose is appropriate and proper, he will carry the request forward in writing to town council. The town administrator shall notify the Board of Selectmen by confidential memo or in executive session of such request. This policy shall not pertain to the Board of Selectmen, as it has a right to access council either individually or collectively for Board of Selectmen business. Request, you want me to stop there?
No, go ahead, read the whole thing.
Request for the initiation of litigation or in defense of litigation shall require the approval of the Board of Selectmen or by the chair of the Board of Selectmen in instances requiring expeditious action by the town. The Board of Selectmen shall approve or deny the request of any board, committee, or commission. In the event the town administrator should deny the request for town council services, he or she will place in writing the reasons and forward this to the department head as well as the Board of Selectmen. An appeal of the decision of the town administrator may be done so to the Board of Selectmen. Written inquiries to and opinions from town council by a board, committee, commission, the town administrator or a department head shall be filed with the Board of Selectmen and the town clerk except in matters involving litigation or prospective litigation which shall be marked confidential. The Board of Selectmen shall approve itemized bills for town council services before making payment. This policy shall not conflict with town officers entrusted to uphold and enforce the Massachusetts general laws, including but not limited to the health agent, police, animal control officer, and building inspector. This policy shall take place immediately, 16 August 2005. At the time it was Bruce Savageau, Mary Jane Pillsbury, Rainey Fernandez Abbott, Cynthia Parola, and Brenda Ekstrom.
And this supersedes 8802, 8908, and this is number 0502. Thank you very much. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment. In the very first paragraph, the second to the last sentence, reads, the town administrator shall notify the Board of Selectmen by confidential memo or in an executive session of such requests. I would suggest that we insert in that sentence the words when appropriate before executive session, because there may be times when it's not appropriate under the open meeting law.
Say it again.
Right.
The sentence currently reads, the town administrator shall notify the Board of Selectmen by confidential memo or in an executive session of such requests. The only time that we should be going into an executive session is for the purposes of litigation or other matters. But there may be a time when the town administrator is notifying us of maybe a request for a legal opinion. That's not.
That's public.
That's
Oh,
public.
I see.
So I'm just asking that we add the words when appropriate.
Following the guidelines of the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law.
Correct.
Then if we do this, we're changing the policy completely, amending it, right?
Mr. Chair,
Appropriate.
just two things through you in response to Mr. Schneider. When I read that sentence, I thought the same thing, but when I reread it, I realized that the town administrator has the option of either a confidential memo or calling an executive session, and one would hope that the town administrator would be schooled enough in this matter to choose the best vehicle to notify us. Just,
Better in writing, I think.
well, I mean, the second thing is that I thought that it was interesting that the policy did say that we are to approve the itemized bills. We do get copies of the legal bills, but we have never, at least as long as I've sat on the board, approved them. And I would like to see us to figure out whether we do it through an agenda item on a monthly basis or however we're going to do that. We don't have any mechanism in place. There's also another.
Mr. Chairman, actually we do. It's called the consent agenda. Authorize for us to pay our bills. So in
Right.
addition to the sewer, you could have a B on there that says legal or town council fees. So
Yeah,
it's already on there.
Whatever works, but it's just, we really should probably be in compliance with our own policy. And I forgot what else I was going to say, so.
So that sentence is okay with you?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's not
I mean,
really.
the approved bills? You don't want any changes there, right? You're not
No.
asking for a change. I'm noting the changes.
No, I think the policy's clear that we have to approve the bills. We haven't been approving the bills, and
Any other changes?
Is there any
Mr.
other
Chairman?
questions? If there isn't any other,
Just
there wasn't a motion, we just leave it as is, or
No.
look at it? Right. He made a recommendation.
He made a recommendation.
Right, there was no
Right.
motion, right.
Mr. Chairman, we do approve the bills when we sign the warrants, correct? Isn't that considered the approval for the bills? When we review them?
Mr. Chairman.
Right, we do, excuse me, we do review it, and it does come on our computer, and it's itemized. So we have a chance to look at it. If we have any discussion, we should have it then when we get it, but,
Okay.
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to make that salient point. It is in the warrant. The board does see it well in advance. If anybody has an issue with it, you can hold it. We can talk about it, get further research, whatever you desire. But it is called the payment of the bills through the warrant. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Winslow?
I do believe that since this board actually is the one who hires town council and town council works for us, that it would be appropriate, as we do with the sewer bills, for them to be on the agenda so that we can discuss in public any issues we may have with an itemized bill. I don't think those conversations should be happening between an individual selectman and the town administrator, and what happens if there's 3 or 4 individual selectmen that have the same problem that are having these discussions. So I would prefer that they go on the consent agenda. That's how it's done in many other communities that have a charter similar to ours. We do them just like we do the sewer bills and make a motion for payment. It's not like we're not going to pay our legal bills. We are the ones that vote the contract for legal services. And then if there's an issue, we can talk about it on TV.
Yeah, and then when the meeting, we sign
Right.
it.
It'll give us
Excuse me,
more
excuse me.
quality time together.
Let's hold this one at a time. Kara, go ahead. Are you finished?
No, yeah, I'm good.
Mr. Holmes?
No, I'm just trying to know if there's any changes, and it sounds like it's the same thing we do with this other stuff. You put it on the agenda, you review it, you come in, put it on the agenda, you vote on it, you sign it. It's right there in the box.
Yeah.
Right? Am I missing something?
Nope.
Okay.
But I do think that Mr. Schneider's change which is just a simple amendment. I don't think it's the rewriting of the policy. We could do an as amended, would require a motion and a vote,
Well,
right?
I think you need to, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
for you, I think,
Mr. Holmes.
if we make a change to this, and what I did was I said such requests when appropriate, following the guidelines of the Mass State Open Meeting Law. Because if it changes next year, we won't have to amend the policy. Right? Is that, yes?
So moved.
Second.
One second.
Wait up.
Because then this policy would get revised to 1110 or whatever it is.
Can you just repeat the wording, Mr.
Yeah, it
Holmes?
says here, the town administrator shall notify the Board of Selectmen by confidential memo or in an executive session of such request when appropriate, following the guidelines of the Massachusetts State Open Meeting Law.
May I offer just one tiny suggestion?
Sure.
When appropriate, in compliance with,
Following the guidelines, no, in compliance with. That works for me too.
open meeting law.
So I'll withdraw my second.
Compliance with.
And Mrs. Begley made the motion.
I made them, I'll
Well,
withdraw my motion.
actually, Mike made the
I don't
motion.
like-
He withdraws, I withdraw a second. Let me reread it one more time, please. The town administrator shall notify the Board of Selectmen by confidential memo or in an executive session of such request when appropriate, in compliance with, and you took the word Mass State out, in compliance with the open meeting law.
So moved.
Mrs. Begley,
Second.
second by Mr. Snyder. There are any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Thank you.
So that would be 11, whatever.
Next up is Wareham Policies and Procedures. I think that was,
Mr. Chair, we just received those in our packets, and
put those off for next week.
yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like to
we-
just put them off.
That's the Wareham Police policy
Yeah.
for the up-and-coming accreditation. They want to be
Right.
up to date on it, so they did send it to us. Or they emailed us end of last week.
There was a,
Oh, and you have the written one in front of you now.
there was a cover letter for that. I'm not sure that the board saw that, because these were dated October 4th. But the third paragraph, this is a letter from Richard Stanley. It says, by the power vested in me by town statute and Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 97A, I have established written policies, procedures, rules, and regulations for the government, discipline, and supervision of the Wareham Police Department. And the law states only the chief of police may alter, amend, or revoke these written directives.
Right. And if we don't act on it in a certain amount of days, it's automatically in.
And Mr. Chair, normally the chief comes in to answer any questions we might have on the policies. Is it possible for us to get him to come by next week? And
Yeah, that'll be perfect.
great, thank you.
Next is the laborers contract ratification. You have a specific motion that you're requesting here?
Just, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Clerk, motion to ratify would suffice. And I will get everybody, we had to convert some older documents into Word documents, so I will get the members of the board the final documentation, hopefully sometime tomorrow.
So we're putting this off until next week as well?
Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate action tonight due to the fact of the actions that we have taken to date, and I would respectfully request the ability to get that Word document to the Board of Selectmen. So it would be a motion to ratify the agreement, what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the board?
Were these the contracts that we discussed last week?
Yes.
Did we not
Unchanged?
vote on them?
No,
Did-
you have to do it public, open meeting, public meeting.
Right, so we did vote, and now we're going to vote again to ratify.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Snyder.
I move that the Board of Selectmen ratify the agreement between the Town of Wareham and the Massachusetts Laborers District Council on behalf of the Wareham Emergency Telecommunications Dispatchers Union for the period July 1st, 2004 through June 30th, 2007. Is that?
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Any other questions on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
4, 1, 0.
Mr. Chairman, I move to ratify the agreement between the Town of Wareham and the Massachusetts Laborers District Council on behalf of the Wareham Emergency Telecommunications Dispatchers Union for the period July 1st, 2004 through June 30th, 2007.
Second.
Motion made and second.
Is that not
I think they're the
Say
same.
the same
I have
thing.
two, Mark.
Yeah,
I have two
no,
of the
it's
same,
different.
Mark.
One was...
Was it the same?
It's the same one.
Sounded like you said
Yeah.
the same thing twice. I thought you did them both at once. You said dispatches.
Wasn't that
and
both at
laborers.
once? Did you do both at once? Yes.
Yeah.
No?
Correct. Yeah, they're both in there.
So they're done. Any other town business, Mr. Chairman?
Any other town business? I have one thing to say. What an incident happened outside the door, and I hope, and I'm respecting all selectmen to act accordingly. We got to respect the public, and the public has to respect us. And if we can't do that, we don't need to be sitting on this board. It's not for us to confront anyone, or they to confront us.
Mr. Chairman,
Excuse me, I'm speaking right now, and there's not going to be any debate, because we're selectmen here, we represent the town of Wareham, and we have to act accordingly. For us to leave this seat, to go out front, to confront anybody, that's uncalled for.
Is this town business? Town business?
Mr. Chairman, you're out of order.
Because,
Mr. Chairman, you're out of order.
okay, state your point.
You're out of order.
Okay, go ahead.
You're out of order. This is not part of this agenda.
But I
Number
made
one.
my statement, and
Mr. Chairman,
I hope it's
and
clear to everybody. Mr. Clerk, continue.
No, you're going to go around the table, town business?
Yep.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, I do not have any other town business.
Mr. Schneider?
Mr. Snyder?
no other town business, Mr. Chairman.
Just a reminder that there'll be a public hearing for the nitrogen regulations on October 19th.
Oh, I saw that today.
And you didn't make an
I
announcement.
did not make it. I apologize.
What was that date again?
October 19th. And I'm going to say 7 p.m. And I hope I'm right. Is it 7?
I
Joe,
have one-
anybody? Okay, I'm going to say 7.
I have
Check the website.
the nitrogen.
The nitrogen public hearing, nitrogen regulations.
I saw that. I read that somewhere today, and I forgot. I apologize. I
That
have
was
a-
6:30? No, I'm asking you.
The Board of Health is still going to have their regular meeting at 4, because they're, I believe, that's true? Did you write it in your book?
I didn't write it down.
It is 7 p.m.
Yeah? Awesome. I was right.
I'm not up to date like the rest of you with the computers. I have to go the old-fashioned way.
I have just one. I think it's any town business. It's got to do with CETA. We've been dancing around the lamppost here for the better part of a year. I know we brought this up before, and I've really seen no action. And the reason I think I haven't seen any action is because it's this board's responsibility to act, and we haven't acted. So we've talked about it. Mr. Andrews resent the letter back to the state, reestablishing this board's authority over CETA. We are the only board in town that the state recognizes as an authority of CETA. And so my point, and if I need to, I don't want to violate any rules, we can put it on next week's agenda, but I want to direct the town administrator to post our CETA director's position, because we're in such a state. We got businesses going on. We got all kinds of stuff in this town, and we have no CETA director. and it's really getting old. Now, I understand that Peter, and I'm not saying anything bad about Mr. Sanborn. I happen to like him. But as a town of Wareham, it's this board's responsibility. Cedar is under our authority. And I think at some point, whether it's today or if you guys think it's out of bounds, it's not really a liaison report, but if it's out of bounds, I'll just shut up and put it on next week's agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Winslow?
if I may through you, to Mr. Holmes, I'm not sure if you weren't present at the meeting that we discussed this issue, and we did set a deadline for the CETA board to review and make recommendations in the job description to this board, and then we intended to review their recommendations and either accept, reject them, rewrite it, with the goal of advertising the position right after the holidays,
Right after what holidays?
the Christmas holidays.
Oh, no.
That
No.
we had Mr. Sanborn here. I'm not.
Excuse me.
I don't.
Yep, excuse me. Let Mrs. Winslow.
Mr. Sanborn came, and it was, and I'm not saying that I was overly happy about it. I think if you watch the tape, you'll see I really wanted to get this done a little quicker, but I can understand the whole transition and making sure that we go about this process correctly, and that was the decision that we as a board came to. And we did put definitive dates on it to ensure that this process got underway. In fact, I believe that one of those deadlines is actually right around the corner. I think that the CETA board is supposed to have that job description back to us. I believe it's mid-October, I'm pretty sure. I'll have to go back and look at the minutes, but just so you know what happened that night, because I do think that you may not have been here.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, I do recall that. However, I'll have to go back and look at those minutes. I do recall we had a discussion, and that's why I'm bringing it up again, because, boy, it would really startle me to know that I voted to wait until January to post a position of CETA director. I would be surprised at myself. I thought that, now that I do remember a conversation, but I thought those dates were a lot sooner than that, because you have the posting. They were going to review that RFP to put out and get it back to us so that we could get it posted. And then have offer Mr. Sanborn's assistance to work with that person for a transition period, 30, whatever, 60 days. But we really, I'll go back and look at those minutes, and if necessary, I'll request it on next week's agenda.
Okay, that sounds like a winner.
And just for the record, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that Mr. Holmes did vote in favor of that. He may not have, but the majority of the board did, so.
Do you remember when that was? August-ish? July? August?
It was, no, I'm pretty sure it was in August, or it was the last meeting in July. And it would be good, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Clerk, if we could all get a list of those dates that we set so we can keep track of them and make sure that we're getting our information in a timely manner.
I'll find them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Begley?
Under any other town business, this might be a good time to bring it up. Mr. Chair, we were talking about minutes, and what I have noticed is there are very few minutes of the Board of Selectmen that have come before this board to approve and to release. So I would love to be able to just go home and look online to see what minutes we're discussing. But these minutes have not come before this board, and the minutes that are posted on the website for 2011 are woefully inadequate. We're doing a great disservice to the public, and I don't think that we're complying with the open meeting law. So if we could just get approval of minutes on the agenda, and in fact, I think it was just last month that minutes from March came before this board for approval. So I'd like to see at least some of the minutes that the meetings that I've participated in come before this board for approval.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because when I first became the chairman, I made it a point to speak to Mr. Andrews about making sure we have it at least 2 weeks after the meeting's over, because open meeting law says 10 days from the time you request it. So we should have it back within 2 weeks in case somebody does request the minutes. And us being
Miss-
board members, if we have to wait 2 months after, it's kind of out of hand. So, Mr. Andrews, if you can work on that and tighten it up a little bit, we appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take it up first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Well,
I think somebody, Mike, did you have your hand up or no?
No, me.
Right, but I thought he did, so go ahead.
I noticed myself, and I don't go online all that often, but some of the minutes that we have approved are not online. So I think that there may be a breakdown in the process. Those March minutes and that first meeting in April are sometimes tough because we did get both the people that were on the board didn't seek re-election, so we knew we would get 2 new people, and a few of those did get put off a couple times because somebody was absent, but even when we do approve them, they're not necessarily getting right up online, so I'm not sure if it's a staffing issue possibly. I know that, everybody in Town Hall is working really hard to get a lot done, but...
Well, what we'll do, we'll have a list made of the minutes that were approved and make sure we start working on them, getting it up to date, whether we move forward from the last one now or starting from today. Make sure this is done within a couple of days and then start working backwards. Either way they want to do it, we need it done as soon as possible.
Mr. Chairman, to follow up
Yes,
on
Mr.
that, I know, and again, I'll put this on the agenda next week or the following week. But as a board, we have talked about it a little bit in the past on the previous board. This board, I don't think has taken the issue up at all. I'll put it back on the agenda again in the next week or two. But we need to really discuss the staffing issue because for over a year now, we're light 40 hours since John St. Jeanette left, and we've never, as a board, backfilled our position in the office since John left. We actually have 3 people there. That we have 2 now, and Susan Green has gone over to. She used to help out. She's gone over to Council on Aging. St. Jeanette left, which just leaves us. Oh God, sorry. Names, yes, Janet Chili. I knew that. I was coming up with that any second now. So I think I'll put that up on the agenda as well so that we can have a discussion about it and see what we'd like to see in the office, what our needs are as a board, so that we can put together a position and get our administrative staff put back together. All right.
Any other questions?
The other thing I noticed, Mr. Cruz, is I'm not sure that all the executive sessions have gone through to be approved
I will
and
work
held
on it
or
this
approved and
week.
released. But, we definitely owe it to the public, to anything that can be
Well, they
approved
can't
and
see those.
released.
They can't
Approved
see
and
those.
there can be approved and released as well when things have been resolved.
Well, we can't blame that on a staffing issue, can we?
Steve?
No, actually, I do have a question, follow up with Mrs. Bailey, because I agree with her that, there's a lot of stuff. And I remember when you came in as the clerk, did you not spend a day and a half somewhere in an office with somebody just trying to find them and bring them all together? Because right after you came in, I remember we sat here one night and we did a ton of them that you found.
Right, because we had to go back maybe 2 administrations prior they were written, but they never were approved because of litigation. So we had to go through, it was Shirley in the office, myself. We went through them, then we have to go through them with the attorney to make sure we can release them. Some of them we could do on our own, and some of them we can't. So a lot of them, if they are written up, we still may have to hold them. Right. But it did take at least two good visits, and it was a few hours on each
I
one.
remember you saying that. Okay.
Anybody else?
Sewer business? Any
Sewer
sewer
business?
business? Liaison reports?
Liaison, we'll start with Mrs. Begley.
The Board of Health now has a quorum and has met. They still have an opening. Had 1 interview at their last meeting, and as I mentioned, there's a public hearing next week. Minot Forest meets tomorrow night. The Bike Path Committee meets later this month. And I can't really think of anything else.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, I was looking around. Yes, this is liaison related. We have the Tremont Nail group. I have a bunch of information I'd like to get out to the board, put it in your packets, or an email I think is appropriate because it's information. But the Tremont Nail board, it's really messed up. There's no quorum. We're not even really sure who the members are. Mr. Slavin, who's not available tonight. Even Alan's done a lot of research on this, trying to figure out who's supposed to show up, who's not supposed to show up. So I will put it out, the information out this week, as well as the language from the charter and anything else that we found on the makeup of the board. And then if the board would be so kind next week to vote on this, if we need to make changes here, because we can't meet. There's no quorum. There's some discussion of the CETA director being on that board, and he has to show up. And then there's some discussion where he's not on that board and doesn't have to show up. We don't know. So we're kind of lost there on that Tremont Nail thing. We really need to regroup. So if it's all right, I'll send out the information this week, and you all have a chance to read through it, and we can put it on next week. Actually on our regular agenda, because we may have to make a motion on the makeup of that board. Okay, and I will ask Mr. Slavin to come next week if that's okay, because Alan has more historical data than I can remember.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Capital Planning Committee will be meeting Thursday morning at 9 a.m. I believe that they are looking to meet in the cafeteria where the planning board meets. Normally I saw an email. What? The cafeteria at 9 a.m. And, of course, the public is welcome. The Library Board of Trustees will meet on Thursday night and 6 p.m.
Mr. Cruz, may I ask Mrs. Winslow a question about the capital planning meeting? I didn't see it posted. I looked this morning on the bulletin board, and I looked outside the clerk's office, and there isn't a posted meeting.
Let me see.
I didn't see it posted on the bulletin board, and I didn't see it posted at the clerk's office. So I'm unsure whether or not they're meeting this Thursday. I know they customarily do. Is it posted
I'm looking.
at the bulletin board and at the clerk's office? Right, but I didn't see it there, but I looked this morning.
The email that went through, that went to, a number of people, asked for it to be posted before 9 a.m. on Tuesday, and asks for the change to the cafeteria. So, yes.
Okay, because I looked at 8:30 this morning and it wasn't there just before we left, so maybe it was posted by then.
'Cause the email went out last night around 7 o'clock. But anyways, so it's the capital planning and the library. And that's all that I have. You want a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Campino was sitting out back. I didn't know if he had a report to make on sewer, or was he just enjoying our company?
All I had was that last week, I had a meeting with Makepeace, and he asked me for on that, and we're going to do that over to Mr. King comes. I think Mr. Holmes asked me to go.
Yeah, he's going to come in next week, I think.
Well, while you're standing there, I apologize because I put that off because I thought, between you would be sitting there with Jim. Did you find that number in your head? Was it 110 or 130?
There's no number. There's no concrete number.
Oh, okay. They gave us one.
This 50,000 is a guaranteed number.
Today.
Correct. And what he's going to do is get back to us with a number.
Okay.
We talked about the BDOT and capacity, They know that we have limited capacity. We're certainly not going to ask for anything more than we have, so I want to report that. So my suggestion here, which is going to get to us through Mr. Kane, a number for the future, but we were very adamant about the point that we have limited capacity. Capacity is what we have at the time he comes forward. They're totally aware of that. They're aware of the Woodward current, and they're assured there'd be no strong arm or anything like that. So I want to report that and with Mr. Kane to actually speak for himself. I'm not speaking for him, but I was very adamant about our position, and they're totally agreed. So capacity is what it is. Capacity is what we have available at the time they ask. That's what capacity is. So they're going to do their very best to get some numbers from our planning, but they also said that anybody that comes forward before this board for capacity, I explained to them very adequately that we would take that project as it is and consider it on its own merits. And they would say absolutely.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
there is a Woodard and Curran report which estimates what the potential for the BDOT could be. And Mr. Kane states in his letter that even after those estimations, there is capacity left. I mean, you can only do so much. We're talking about, and it would be great if we could post this information online, because I think people need to see things for themselves. There's a nice map with a highlight. We're talking about a very small portion that this particular agreement is in relation to. And the 50,000 gallons that we gave them was aside from this agreement. So just a suggestion that, but there is a Woodard and Curran report. I'm sure that Mr. Campina has a copy of that report somewhere. And that report, pretty much covers, everything. It accounts for a lot of different scenarios, so.
300 acres of the BDOT capacity available, as I understand. We have a 300 acre BDOT commercial industrial, that's what it says. They also promise the capacity. And also further, right now they're coming through Springboard. It also gives us the option of bringing them through the force main on 28. We have that option, because it gives us that option, it's our discretion. So if Springboard got to be a problem, we can bring it to the front. But the point is that we have 186,000 gallons for the Woodward and Curran that's available to us. So we're not going to use nearly those gallons. So we can move forward. But the point is, we can move forward. Anything that comes in front of us, we can move forward. And the point I want to make is that this is not to stop us from moving forward. And anything that comes in front of us, if you came tomorrow with development, we can take that as own merits, grant capacity. When they finally gave to us, they understand that whatever capacity is the capacity. There's no reserve capacity. So I think that's important as we make decisions in the future.
Any other? Mr. Begley?
A couple things. First of all, you didn't make any promises about capacity. You didn't make any, okay, no promises. Okay. There's a couple things. One is the packet that we received from AD Makepeace. And it says here on June 8th, 2010, the Wareham BoS Selectmen made a motion. Motion by Selectman Winslow made a motion to approve the request by AD Makepeace for the sewer connection for Rosebrook Business Park, not to exceed 50,000 gallons per day, and then there were following conditions. And that passed by a vote of 410. The other thing is on the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, there's a section 192, and it identifies the Board of Sewer Commissioners. And it says the Board of Selectmen, acting as the Board of Sewer Commissioners, has the discretionary authority to permit or reject applications for sewer extensions or connections to the sewer system. It is the understanding of the Board that any other areas requesting or demonstrating a need for sewers could only obtain approval after all of the 12 sewer areas are connected. Other sewer needs areas would have to be identified in future CWMP efforts, which would be subject to future MEPA review. In addition, major sewer extension will require a DEP sewer extension permit. One of the many provisions that DEP will consider when granting approval is whether the project is consistent with the latest approved CWMP. So just food for thought, and we can certainly discuss that when Mr. Kane's able to meet with this board.
No other questions from the board?
Chairman Cruz, I apologize. I do think that we should wait until all parties are present to really have a discussion about this. I do believe that the vote that we took on the 50,000 gallons, although it's not quite clear to me in here whether this is parcel A or parcel B, but the agreement between the town and AD Makepeace is relative to parcel B. It's not inclusive of the entire BDOT. And that's a very important piece for people to understand. That the BDOT being, however many acres it is, this agreement relates to one, on the map it's highlighted, parcel B. It clearly states throughout the agreement that this is parcel B. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. But I do think we need to really have all the parties present so that questions can be answered and everybody is on the same page and we can all understand going forward. I mean, we have a company who's making great strides in economic development. They've brought us a medical building. There's, we don't give everybody else a hard time like this.
Ms. Law, I think it was already mentioned that we're going to have all parties
Yes.
presented before. So
Thank
if you
you.
want to hold off on that, you can make your statement at that time. I think you had a motion earlier.
I motion to adjourn.
Motion made. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.